The Utterly Uninteresting and Unadventurous Tales of Fred the Vampire Accountant by Drew Hayes. In a note from the author, Frederick Frankfurt Fletcher introduces himself and tells the reason for this book of memoirs, so that people who find themselves being parahumans know that they're not alone, even if they are not as automatically cool and charming as portrayed in movies for vampires and werewolves and such. First off, Fred is an accountant. He loves being an accountant, and he wants to stay an accountant. So he does, even after being turned into a vampire. Memoir 1 is A Vampire at the Reunion. Fred goes to his 10-year class reunion and finds that the football team are all werewolves, and that his one-time friend Crystal works for an agency that governs the parahumans of the United States. With the unintentional distractions provided by Fred, the agency is able to save their fellow alumni from the werewolves, which of course is followed by Crystal and Fred going out on a date. In Memoir 2, The Zombie at the LARP, Crystal shows up a couple weeks after their high school reunion and drags Fred out on a date, with a quick stop for a work thing. This quick stop turns into an amateur necromancer capturing a group of LARPers in the park in order to drain their life force and for his own power. The good news is Fred gets a tax write-off for hiring the necromancer's zombie best friend, Albert, and when Neil gets arrested for practicing magic without a license. So Neil gets a teacher in magic, and Albert doesn't have to be returned to his place in the natural world, i.e. killed. In Memoir 3, A Weresteed at the Slots, Crystal takes Fred and Albert to Las Vegas for Thanksgiving and to meet an old friend who happens to have gambled himself into slavery with Dracolings, being humans who have dragon blood but cannot transform. Crystal challenges for Bubba's freedom, but having lost her chess game, she is now owned by the Dracolings, and her life is not her own. Fred and Albert challenge the Dracolings for Crystal and Bubba, and because Fred is a male and is considered strong enough for a real challenge, his challenge has to be jousting. So through last resorts and baseball strategies of all things, Fred wins his freedom and all of their freedoms, and then they are able to go home with Bubba, of course, following along so that he can be closer to Crystal and Fred. In Memoir 4, A Mage in the Park, in the first few weeks of December, Neil storms into Fred's apartment asking for help to find his teacher, Amy. Crystal is out of town, so Bubba takes the group to the head of the local Therians, werepeople, to ask for help. As it happens, Richard Alderson knows Neil's teacher, Amy, and goes with them to track her down. They end up out at a park where they have to fight their way through strange creatures and find Amy high off her duty on her own alchemic drugs that she sells to parahumans. Last but not least, in Memoir 5, A Monster in the Pews, Fred and Crystal are getting ready for the group's Christmas get-together when Quinn, Fred's sire who abandoned him before he even rose from his initial transformation, shows up and steals Crystal, threatening to kill her if Fred does not meet Quinn's bloodthirsty expectations. Bubba, Albert, Neil, and Amy head out with Fred to save Crystal. Neil tries to freeze Quinn and all of his minions, but they find that Quinn cannot be held by a necromancer when he rips out Crystal's throat. Crystal then reveals why she works for this agency and how she can actually take care of herself. Or should I say, the devil imprisoned inside her can take care of her.